No speaky. No speaky.
Okay. All right. Tonight on the Mac to the Future, Mac to the Future Go livecast. Apple is selling less phones, but is making more money. Amazon sells Apple products, and why this is news. iPad reviews show that reviewers don't know what iPads are for, and I make a terrible, terrible mistake, and my big rant about it from last week is now really, really embarrassing. Tonight, all on the Mac to the Future livecast Go. No, it's Mac to the Future Go livecast. I don't know, something like that. Yeah, hey everybody, how you doing? It is the Mac to the Future Go livecast. I actually said it right that time. Who would have guessed that? And David is not with us this week, but I am joined, if I can figure this out, and I'm pretty sure I can. I am joined by Mr. Warren Sklar. Am I? No, that's not right. I know he's here somewhere. La 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 la. There you are. Hello, Warren. It just took me a minute.
It always shocks me when you.
I know. Well, and you're live. You're still live in Guatemala. How is Guatemala this time of year?
Hot. Africa.
Hot.
It's Africa hot. What movie?
So very very hot.
No, what movie? It's hot. It's Africa hot.
All right.
Movies. Come on. All right. Go ahead.
So. Last week, for people who were here last week, not so much during the show, but right after the show was over, we do the little thing just to make sure that everything is going to finish up on Facebook before we actually cut everything off. And I was ranting and raving because I had gotten a copyright violation over there in the tubes of you, and the company in question was not happy because they were claiming that the music that I used in the closing theme for the Mac to the Future Go livecast was theirs. And and this has been going on for a while. And I had insisted over and over and over again that I had created the closing credits in Adobe Premiere Elements, and that the music that was used was from Adobe Premiere Elements, and that's royalty free, and no copyright, and leave me the hell alone, and blah blah blah. Well, they followed it up by saying, no, that's our song. So I was like, okay, you know what? This is what you're forcing me to do. You are forcing me to go into Adobe Premiere Elements to prove you wrong. To prove you wrong. And Warren, can you guess what happened then?
You proved them wrong.
No, I did not prove them wrong. I proved that they were right, that it was their copyright music, and the music that I had in the closing credits was not indeed from Adobe Premiere Elements, but from...
What made you think that it was, I guess, is my question.
Because all of the various things that you see, all of the pre-recorded video that you see in this program was all made in Adobe Premiere Elements over the years. So when, this first started popping up, and it wasn't until probably about 30 shows ago when this started happening, like almost every single week. And then every single week I would put in this thing saying, no, it's mine. And finally,
have we been doing this show that long?
Yeah, this is episode 79. So
Jesus Christ.
I know. And we actually missed a couple weeks where I was either sick or, out of town or whatever. So it has been, we're going on close to 2 years now that this show's been on.
No.
Well, it's not been 2 years since you've been on, because the first, I can't remember how many. And you know, if you want to, you can go over to YouTube and you can see the very first Mac to the Future Go live casts that I did. I don't necessarily recommend it, because as much of a train wreck as the show is now, it was of Hindenburgian proportions.
I remember, yeah. You were playing around with video stuff.
Yeah, I was using a lot of different. I used to use. Well, of course, I used OBS, and then there was another program I used. I think it was called Just Broadcaster, and it wasn't a bad program, but I had a lot of problems with audio where I couldn't mute certain audio sources, and because of latency, I would hear my own voice back like a second later, and that just kills you when you're trying to do something like this, because you just sounded like you're drunk, and it just wasn't going to work. So when Boink Software came to me and offered me the use of Mimo Live, and I'll give them a plug here. This program is freaking amazing. And what I really need to, I mean, I've already got some stuff written up about it. It's kind of a first look that I need to post over there at my Mac. I really just need to add some pictures to it. But if you do anything at all, anyone who's listening to this, if you do anything at all with live casting, this software is, the power that it has and the ease of use that it has is really, really amazing. Now you can go cheaper. There's a program from Ecamm. I think it's just called Ecamm Live. And I used that a couple times, but it's kind of limited. And the way that you interact with the various video sources, it's very easy to get confused and lost. Whereas OBS as a free program gave you much more flexibility, but wasn't as easy to use as Mimo Live. And Mimo Live is kind of, Mimo Live is kind of the cross between relatively low cost. It's not free. They got to eat too. Between relatively low cost and feature set. There's another program I used from, I think Telestream is the name of the company, called Wirecast, and very, very powerful program. But the way the interface worked, and they haven't really changed it since I tried it. It just, for the kind of stuff I was trying to do, it didn't work for me, and it was very, very pricey. So I bought it one time and didn't really use it that much. And I know we've gone on way longer than I really wanted to.
Are you still talking?
Yeah, I'm still talking. Who do we got over there in the chat? We got Alex Langfield. Hello,
Frank.
Alex.
I see Frank. I see lots of Frank. But I saw something else.
Vicky Spear. Hey, Vicky. Matt Frost and Terry. Mr. Crowley. We got Mr. Crowley, Mr. Terry Crowley. He is with us here. At least these are all the people that are talking. Really appreciate you all being here tonight. We're going to get off from that, and we're going to talk about something that I've been seeing lately. Ever since, I can't even think, there was an analyst who said, and I think we talked about this a little bit last week. There was an analyst who was talking about Apple supposedly cutting back on orders for the iPhone XR because it wasn't selling as well, and blah, 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 blah. And all it took was a couple of financial sites to start talking about this. And now you've got sites like CNN and some of the other bigger sites that are jumping on the bandwagon, because anything that's Apple related, these people just jump on because it's clickbait crap. This is the same problem I have with sites like Business Insider and Forbes and some of the other ones that have Apple stories that just don't mean anything. It's crap reporting. They don't really know anything, so they just throw something out there to see what sticks. But in this story, there's a lot of different news sources related to business that are asking whether or not Apple can maintain their growth in iPhone sales and whether or not recent cuts in production, and this is based on analyst reports with no actual data, is a worrying sign of things to come. Well, before people start playing Nearer My God to Thee on the RMS Apple Tannic, there's a couple things to remember. Apple makes more money off of smartphones than all of the other companies that make smartphones combined. Apple is making roughly, it's between like 80 and 90% of all the profits in smartphones. And at the end of the day, how many phones you sell isn't nearly as important as how much money you have or how much money you've made from the sales of your products. And the other thing to remember is that Apple's retention rate, this is the number of people that buy an Apple product and then when it comes time to replace it, buy another Apple product, is also in the 80 to 90% range. So typically, once somebody buys an iPhone or an iPad or a Mac or whatever Apple product you care to name, when they need to replace it, they typically buy another one. So whether or not Apple's sales continue to grow, and remember, there's always an upper limit to the number of people that are going to buy a high dollar device like an iPhone or an iPad. You're never going to get a majority share when you sell a luxury brand. You know, this is the nature of things. You know, there's, you know, Warren, there's a lot of people that are seem to be really, really concerned that Apple can't make headway in sales in India. Is this something that Apple needs to worry about?
They've been trying. I mean, it was 3-4 years ago is when they started trying.
Sure.
And then they started going through the whole process of being able to sell there because India had a crazy thing where you had to sell like 30% local goods in every store or something like that.
Right. It had to be locally procured and manufactured goods.
Right. So the big joke, it was going to look like an Apple store, but in the corner it was going to be like Indian spices and food and stuff like that. So, I don't know what they figured. So I think they actually had to open some factories in India to produce the things that they needed to sell, and I think that's where they were. And I don't know how it's going, but they're trying. So they're
well, they are trying, but remember that the Indian economy is very, very different from the economies of Western Europe and the economies of the United States, even of the economy in China. You have a large middle class or a growing middle class in all of those places, where that's not really the way things are in India. You have
you got the
upper caste. It's castes. You have the upper castes, and then you have the lower castes, and then you have the untouchables. So, right. You know, it's not like the lower castes and the untouchables are going to have $1,000 to spend on a smartphone. They're just not. Right. So you're not going to get the majority, or even really large sales of any product in particular that sells as a luxury device. It's just not going to happen.
But they're very, I mean, from what I could see, they're very interested. The people there really want to, buy into the system. So, the goal was to sell cheaper phones like a 5C there or 5S. I think they're still selling the 5S there.
Yeah.
And the used market is pretty good, and the stolen iPhone market's really good over there.
That's huge. It's tremendous.
Because if you go to any other Facebook group, it's help. I found this. I didn't find it. I got this device, and it's got the iCloud activated. How do I undo this iCloud activation?
Yeah.
That's like every post. So yeah, they seem to yeah, but it's a whole it's weird over there because you'll hear people say like as far as like stealing software and things like that, they think it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah, that's fine.
And I thought about it for a while, and you know what? If the whole country thinks that it's okay, then you're gonna think it's okay, and that's how it's not. But that's
Yeah, but
it's a
you're
really
not going
big
to sell
cultural thing.
a lot of $1,000 phones there.
You're
Not
not
going to
no,
happen.
but you're gonna sell a lot of you could sell a lot of cheap iPhones and a lot of the used market iPhones and things like that. So
Well,
I
Apple
don't
actually
know.
tried that. They wanted to take the vast majority of their used iPhones and sell them in the third world, sell them in India, sell them in Africa. And India kind of put the squash on that. They're like, "No, we don't want your used phones. We want new phones." And it's like, well,
Right.
okay.
Well, yeah. But
People in hell
so
want ice water.
either they're going to sell a different subset of cheaper phones there, or they're going to not. To,
Yeah. And Mike, God, I know I'm going to say his name wrong. Worthiel, I think. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. I'm sorry. He says, keep in mind these are the same guys who last year said that the iPhone 10 was selling very badly, and as it turned out, it was selling just fine. One last thing to remember is that even if iPhone and iPhone sales aren't growing at a pace that analysts and Wall Street want, one part of what Apple does is growing in leaps and bounds. And I'm not talking about the Mac, and I'm not talking about iPads. Apple services are expanding at a rapid rate, and they're at this point they are number two as far as a money making profit center for
keep going,
Apple.
keep going. I'm here. My dog is
And he's gone. Warren's gone.
my dog is pacing. If my dog could hop on one foot, he would be doing that.
When I gotta pee, I gotta pee really bad,
Daddy, let me out. He's off.
or you'll be really, really sorry. So very sorry.
It's all hardwood. Hardwood.
Uh,
Yeah, the analyst with the X.
yeah,
Yeah, but it's that's kind of why Apple's not reporting the numbers anymore because they're tired of people trying to figure their shit out,
yeah.
stuff out.
No, and I get that. And of course, the fact Apple was one of the few companies that was actually reporting unit sales on their products. I can't think of any of the other cell phone, smartphone companies that did the same. Of course,
We
they
talked about
also
that last week.
have, yeah, they
They
also
have a
have
huge
50
line.
different 50 different brands.
Right. So Samsung's not going to
You
break
can't,
it out
well, you
because
can't
it
even, you
falls.
can't even talk about galaxies because there's
Right.
20 different galaxies. So how do you do
It's
that?
probably the same amount of galaxies as there's iPhones, but Samsung has plenty of other phones out there too, all over the world. So
Hell, they still got flip phones out there. They're still
yeah,
selling freaking flip phones.
they got flipping flip phones. Out there.
Yeah.
Flipping, yeah.
And something to something that a lot of people don't realize that in a third world, most of the households don't have a cable connection like you would here in the States or in Europe. They rely almost entirely on cellular services for their access to the world because that's a lot easier to install, and we're getting to the point where supposedly the fifth gen, what's the word, fifth gen,
And it's 5G, Wi-Fi. Whatever.
it's a marketing term. I don't think it's actually been figured out yet what it is, what
Yeah.
5G actually is, other than it's going to be so much faster. Or how does it work? I don't know.
They're saying it could replace home broadband, is what they're saying. So
Okay, well, lots of things could replace home broadband
Well,
if you're still
it's
on
faster.
AOL, yeah, it could replace home broadband.
Well, no. Well, what?
AOL. AOL.
AOL is not.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not
400K
broadband. That's
floppies, man. Those things were awesome.
broadband. Not dial-up. Broadband.
Well, that's you know what? There's a joke there, and I'm just not going to even go there because if I do, I'll get myself in trouble. So,
Is this a stolen song?
no, it's not a stolen song, but it's. I would get in trouble. I would definitely get in trouble. Okay, we're going to take a short break, and we've got two more things to talk about when we come back. So, everyone, I'm going to steal this. I'm going to steal this right now. Stand by. To stand by. Go ahead, sue me, and we'll be right back.
This is Private Eye Macintosh, and I'm here to tell you about a book written about me and my search for the Maltese Cube. Yes, it's a fine book. I think you should get it. Quiet, you. It combines technology, Mac trivia, action, murder, suspense. Oh, just tell them where to get it. I'll get to that. Romance, film noir detective fiction. I can't stand it anymore. It's called The Maltese Cube, and it was written by my Mac writer and podcaster Guy Searle. Find it on Amazon. It's only $2.99 and coming soon to the Apple's iBook store. Don't forget, it's The Maltese Cube and so inexpensive. You know you're not in it, right? I'm in the next one, right? Sure thing, Louis. You know, this could be the start of a beautiful friendship. Get the Maltese Cube on Amazon and soon in the iBook store.
Do 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 do
a fine
do
book.
do do. It's a fine book. I think you should get it. Yeah, that was my what was that actor's name? He Peter Lorre. Peter Lorre. That was like my Peter Lorre imitation. Not a great imitation.
What about
And yeah, the Humphrey Bogart isn't really all that good either. Actually, one of the things. Yeah, let me tell you. See, one of the things that that I've worked on over the years. You know Carl Madden, right? Have you talked to him before?
I've talked to him.
Okay. He and I took the Maltese Cube book and hammered out an audio script for it, and we were going to produce that. It was like a 12 or 13 episode podcast, and I was recruiting some people to do lines, and then I was going to put the whole thing together in GarageBand. Unfortunately, I don't think I really knew what I was getting myself into. Trying to corral that many different people to do lines and have them all come out at the same relative levels, volume levels, and have the same, it was going to be a nightmare. And I kind of just let the project drop. And I guess at this point, what I really need is someone that can do a lot of different voices that can just like bang through the whole thing. You've got, what was the name of the guy? Stephen Fry, who did all of the Harry Potter books for the UK version of the audiobooks for Harry Potter.
The guy with the curly hair?
Yeah. But he did like all of those books. He did all of the voices. He did everything. And it, you could tell the character, huh? Oh my God! No, I sure for the right price that Stephen Fry would be willing to do the Maltese Cube, but I don't have any money to pay anyone to do these things, which is why I may end up doing it myself just because I can't afford that.
Is the book like Mac based? Is it or Apple? Is there Apple?
Oh yeah. It takes. I mean, I originally wrote it. The original story was printed in the Washington Apple Pie, which is a user group here in the DC area. It was originally published in their journal, and it was over the course of like 6 or 7 different publications. And then when
You wrote it?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it was like 2001 kind of 2001 and 2004 kind of Apple history. God, that is really loud. I don't know what that is.
My dog's ringing the doorbell, so I gotta.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm not joking.
Okay. So I wrote the book, and I ended up kind of rewriting parts of it when I started writing for mymac.com, and Tim Robertson was kind enough to let me redo it there. And eventually I took that and rewrote it kind of again and put it out on Amazon. Where you can still buy it to this day, which is what that commercial is talking about there. Whether you get it for the Kindle or whether you get it in a hardcover. I actually have somewhere here. I know it's not the other thing that I always drag out as a joke. I've got like 20 copies of the book. I probably should just give them away because I don't know what else I would do with them. But it's only like 80, 90 pages. Basically it's just a short story. But
we got to make the movie.
Yeah, that's going to happen. The Maltese Cube, so we're not ripping off just film noir. We're also ripping off Apple history, and there's so much that is just taken from various sources. Yeah. It's I'm not particularly proud of the book, but it was fun to write. And I mean, it's a fun read for an afternoon. It doesn't really take you very long to read it. And I'm going to stop talking about it.
Awesome.
Because we already did the commercial for it. So, but you can find it over on Amazon if you want to buy it.
Strangely enough, now I'm more interested in it than I was with the Kindle. So
well, you have a Kindle, right? It's real cheap for the Kindle. It's like $2, $3, something like that. Or, well, I mean, it's available. If you want to read it electronically, it's there. If you want the hard copy, it's there.
Can I get you?
I can send you.
No, just read it to me.
But right now, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Call me Humphrey Bogart.
Yes. It's a fine book.
It's a fine book. I think you should get it.
All right.
Okay, back to our Hey, Juan Salazar. He's there. He's a guy I used to know in high school. Hey, Juan. Marcus has joined us. I'm a wanker, apparently.
Marcus said he bought a book.
Oh, he bought the book?
That's what he says.
Should I bother reading it? Can I get a Woody for reading it? You should get a Woody just for buying it. Tom Cruise is in the wings. Yeah, no, I don't think Tom Cruise is interested at all in doing the Maltese Cube. All right, 2 stories left, and then we're going to call it a night. I swear to God. What a lot of people may not know is that for years, Amazon was not selling Apple products. Did you know that?
They weren't. But then they were for a little. They sold some Apple products.
Well, they sold Apple products, but not from Apple. It was all from third parties.
Okay. Because
they were it was not long after Amazon originally came out with some of the Fire devices, and it wasn't just Apple that was affected by this. They also stopped selling some of the what was Google's version of like the Fire TV stick and the Apple TV and things like that.
Chromecast.
Yeah, Chromecast. They weren't selling the Chromecast either.
Right.
Oddly enough, they did sell Rokus, but they stopped selling Apple products. They stopped selling Google products, mostly in favor of their own.
Right.
Well, the snit between
So-
Amazon and Apple that has prevented direct sales of Apple products appears to be over. And now when you purchase Apple products, you can get them through Amazon Prime. While you could actually buy Apple's products from Amazon previously, it wasn't actually from Apple, but as I said, from third-party resellers. So I don't know what changed here between, and apparently neither did the author of this story. What changed between Amazon and Apple? I kind of get the feeling that Amazon, because Amazon and Apple compete in so many different areas now, that maybe they were afraid of kind of getting tainted with the Microsoft brush for, only selling their own products versus other people's products, maybe getting labeled as monopolistic, which in a lot of ways they are, especially when you're talking about books.
I mean, I think Apple is just
Buy the Maltese Cube there on Amazon.
There you go. I think Apple is probably happy to have. I mean, they know how big Amazon is, and they know,
Sure, everybody does.
and they know that it's an extra revenue for them. So that's their thing. It's been a battle for a while. If you remember, Amazon, the Amazon Video thing wouldn't go on the Apple TV forever, and they finally let it on. That was a
Right,
big
but
deal.
that wasn't Apple. That wasn't Apple that was doing that.
Well, it was
that was
I'm
Amazon.
sure.
Yeah,
Right, but I'm sure they
because
both have-
Apple. Well, that all
They go
started
back and
because
forth.
Apple wasn't willing to allow Amazon to sell direct without Apple getting their cut. And this is the same thing that's happened with a lot of content producers in Apple. They're basically saying, well, if when people come to our website and buy it direct, then we make more money. And Apple's like, yeah, but you're going through our services, so you don't get to determine that. We're the ones, and it's the same across the board. It's a 30% cut across the board for any content that you sell through Apple services. And 30% in a retail market is not a bad percentage.
Yeah. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
So they could sell everything but the HomePod, evidently, is what I'm reading.
Yeah, and Frank says that your dog has an Android.
I don't know why he said that.
Huh, why not?
Okay.
All right.
Let's just go with that. Yes.
Last story for the evening. We're probably going to finish up a little early tonight. iPad reviews are in, Warren, and it shows that many don't know what an iPad is for. And in this particular case, the example I was using was from a writer that works for VentureBeat. Like most reviews, the author seems enamored with comparing an iPad with Mac or PC laptops, instead of reviewing it on its own and being a purpose-driven device. They speak about software limitations without understanding the nature of the iPad and why it works the way that it does. The clincher for me was complaining about the USB-C ports, which sounded petulant, much the same as all the complaints that there were when they did away with the 30-pin port when they went to Lightning originally. My accessories don't work is the battle cry without understanding that new ones will appear soon, especially since it's a common port instead of a proprietary Apple one. So, I don't really know why so many reviewers, instead of looking at the iPad for what it is, which is it's a tablet touch-based driven device. It's not a Mac OS device. It's not a Windows device. It's not a Linux device. It works the way it does, and that is by design. This is where you come in and say something.
Spam messenger. Yes. So, this is right. This is the age-old iPad issue. We still it's designed for everything. It's designed for anything that you want it to be designed for. But it's not one thing. It's not a laptop. It could be a laptop replacement for some people. It could be a media consumption device for another. It could be a big TV like for my mom. It's whatever it is. I actually just saw it today for the first time, the new one, and it's nice. It's very nice. I mean, it's very nice, but it's the same as. It's no different than it's been for years. Really,
Right.
It's the same operating system.
Well, it's a slab.
It's a tablet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got a nicer keyboard now that I saw. But it runs iOS. So, um, you know, the confusion is that it runs iOS with a port that's not a Lightning port, and it's more of a universal port. So now everybody's trying to figure out if that means can we do more things with it than previous. And right now the answer is kind of not really. The only thing it does now with the USB-C port that it didn't do with the Lightning, it seems to be, was the 4/5K monitor.
Right.
And it could take a hub as well.
But isn't that because of the improved processor and graphics capability? Could you do it? Because I don't think you could do a 4K with previous versions of the Pro. It wasn't a limitation of
It's a port
the
thing.
earlier iPads as far as the ports go, because you could get a Lightning to HDMI
Yeah,
dongle.
that will drive HDMI, but never was fast enough to carry a 4K
Well, that's true.
signal. Yeah. So you needed the USB to carry it. So, any case, they put this on, and everybody's like, what can we do with this USB-C? Can we make it more computer-like? And that's what everybody wants to do. So, people were like, all right, I want to put a USB-C. First of all, I forget who sells it, but there's a USB-C hub out there for the iPad now.
Yeah, but what are you going to put on it?
Well, that's the question. But it exists. It comes out there. You have a couple USB-A ports. You have a video out. You have a headphone jack thing, and an SD card slot, I think. So, in reality, the only thing you could really add to it is kind of the things you were adding
Could put on before.
But,
An audio interface, maybe an exterior camera if you had the right software. But it's not like you're going to hang a hard drive on it or something like that.
No, but
there's really no point.
No, but it's sort of like a tease at this point for these people. They're like, well, now it easily has the ability for me to connect a hard drive to it. I didn't have to go out and buy an extra thing to do that. Now I have because I have a MacBook now, right? And a USB-C port on it, and I have a USB-C cable. So now I have the ability, without having to buy anything else, to hook that up to my iPad and see what happens. And what happens is nothing. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't work. So it's sort of a confusing tease to people who wanted to do more than it could do, because it's
it's got a port
there.
that supposedly you could do that with, if it supported those kinds of devices, but it doesn't. And the only hard drives I can think of that it used to support were those Wi-Fi drives, and that was flaky as hell. It didn't really work that well. I had one from Seagate, I think, and it was frankly more trouble than it was worth, because I would be out and about someplace and it'd be like, oh well, instead of clogging up my 120 gig iPad's internal memory with movies and TV shows, I can just put all this stuff, because I've got a 1 terabyte drive that I can put all that stuff on. So I would, and then it'd be like, okay, now I need to fire up the drive, but I can't have it connected to power because that kills the Wi-Fi, and then I have to connect the Wi-Fi to the. And by the time I would finally get it working, it would be like, okay, I'm going to land in 20 minutes. So what's the point?
Yeah, and I have one. And I have one or two of them too. But the Lightning, iXpand and SanDisk sell a Lightning connected USB drive.
Mm-hmm.
You plug it in as Lightning, and then basically from there, you need to run their app.
It's a files. It's a file management app.
Yeah, but it's not the files management app in iOS.
Right.
That's built in. It's their app.
Yeah, and it kind of works because I know
listen,
that.
Guy, what I'm saying though is, right now iOS 12 and a iPad Pro have a file a app that's called Files, and a USB-C connection that allows you to connect a drive to it. So
Right.
people are out there like, we're almost there, dude. We almost got what we want, but it doesn't do it. So that's these people writing these reviews that don't know what it's for are gonna say, listen, I know you could watch movies on it. I know you could do draw on it. I know you could do a lot of editing programs on it. I know you could buy a keyboard and a nice pencil for it. But dude, it's got a file management app, and it's got a place for me to put in a USB drive. I want to do that. And we're going to sit here as Apple people saying, well, you can't, because it's, and we'll go through our logical reasons of why you can't.
It's
File
unnecessary.
associations, security, how they can handle it, how they're going to move files around. There's a lot of things going on in there that you can't just say, plugging in a hard drive and having it be like a full, manageable file system, because it's not.
That's not what it's intended for.
Right. But the more they make this thing look like something that could do something a computer does, people who don't understand what's going on are going to say, why can't I get my resume? My resume's on this. I want to get it.
It's a fat 32. It's a fat 32 hard drive. Why can't I connect it to my things?
So I get people that are older and
hey,
older, even older than you, believe it or not. And they
that's
want
ancient.
to come in and they go. So here's the thing: they had a computer and they want to go straight to iPad. So you got somebody who had a computer and wants to get rid of the computer and just use an iPad. So you start talking about it, and you start talking to them. They're like, "Well, what do I do with all my files on my computer? What do you do with all the files on the computer if you got an iPad?" Yeah, well, I guess you can move everything into the iCloud and blah blah. Blah.
Yeah.
But no. You could talk about storage plans. You got to talk about how they're going to get to it. You can talk about how they have to be on a Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily have to go through iCloud. There's you got Dropbox, you got Box. There's all kinds of cloud services out there that you can put all this stuff on. Then the only question that comes in.
I don't want to put my bank account info on it.
Well, then don't. The stuff that's really, really sensitive should be native on the iPad. But all of the stuff that's just the fluff of your life doesn't need to go directly onto the iPad. You can put that into Box or Dropbox or iCloud or
I'm just saying there's
Microsoft's Drive or God knows what.
Right. There's people who want to go from a computer to an iPad easiest way possible without going through online services, and they can. And the kicker is if they bought an iPad Pro with a USB external drive, they could do it, but it doesn't work, so they can't do it.
Well, they think they can't do it.
No, they can.
Sure, they can. All it really depends on is having an application that's able to do something with those files. And if there isn't an application for some of those things, I mean, so much of what we do now is now browser based. I mean, hell, this connection between us right here, this is browser based. You're talking to me through Mimo Live, but it's through a Chrome browser. That's how we're connected.
You and I understand technology. some use tech writers who are reviewing the iPad, and some of the people who might want to buy one don't. And Apple's
Well, why are tech writers that don't understand